Hey friends, I'm going to quickly go over what we learned in chapter 2 of And Then There Were None. Basically, in this chapter, all of the people who are going to be on the island gathered on shore. Remember, they're off the Devon coast, and they took a boat to get to the island. Everybody arrived on the island. We learned that the guy who owns the house, which is Mr. or Mrs. Owen, that they have not arrived. And so the guests are told that they can go up to their rooms, and then dinner will be served later that evening. During that time, we learn a couple of things. Edward Armstrong, he's the doctor. When he arrives, he says that the island is just beautiful, and he views the island as a world from which you might never return. That is a direct quote from the book. That was worth noting because in the poem, 10 Little Indians or 10 Little Soldiers, the third line is 8 little soldier boys traveling in Devon. One said he'd stay there, and then there were 7. So the fact that they're just off the coast of Devon and he's thinking of staying there, that's just something to note in terms of that poem. William Blore, remember, he's the guy who is going by a different name. He's coming up with an alias. He is going by the name Mr. Davis, and he says he's from South Africa. We also can note that he's really alert and really observant. Owen, this is the person who allegedly owns the house on the island. Many of the people who are coming to the island are employed by him, and none of them have ever seen him. They say that he pays his bills on time, but nobody really knows anything about him or her. But we can assume that they're quite wealthy because they did buy a mansion on an island. Miss Emily Brent, she's the one who's really strict. She's always sitting up really upright. She was described as being an old maid, the sour kind. And at the end of the chapter, she's seen reading her Bible, and she's reading a particular passage about wickedness and heathens. She really seems to look down on other people and thinks she's better than others. Vera Claythorne, she's the younger gal who was a teacher, and she's also been, since she arrived, really upset about, she's looking at the ocean, and as soon as she looks at the ocean, she starts thinking about drowning. So what we did was we can make the inference that the death that she was involved in, because we learned in chapter 1 that she was definitely involved with the death, but she was acquitted, meaning that she was not found guilty for the person who died. But it seems like that death was probably a drowning, since she's just drowning, drowning, drowning whenever she looks out at the sea. And she's definitely traumatized by this event. We didn't really learn anything about General Gordon MacArthur. He really didn't say anything. We know he's military, and we know he's old. That's really about it. Captain Lombard, we learned that he's traveled around the world. He doesn't really like the island because he thinks it's too shut in. He prefers an open countryside where he can see what's coming at him. And he's described as being panther-like. Anthony Marston, he's the guy who's a really reckless driver, and he's really handsome, and he drives a nice car. The book says that he is a creature of sensation and action. He just cares about the things that he can experience with his senses. He likes a fast car. His muscles ache, so he wants to take a hot bath and enjoy the steam. And then he's going to have a nice drink, and then he's going to eat dinner, and then he's going to do whatever else he pleases. He just seems really self-centered. Somebody in class also said that he seemed like a narcissist, and I agree. We were then introduced to the Rogers. These are a married couple who are on the island. They arrived about 2 days before everybody else arrived. Thomas is working as the butler. He's also really handy, so he can fix things, and basically their job is to make sure that everybody on the island is taken care of. Ethel Rogers, though, she's described as being a pale ghost of a woman. It also says she looks like a woman who walked in mortal fear. So she always looked really afraid, and she and her husband they're the only couple on the whole island, which is kind of interesting. Out of all of the 10 people, they are the only 2 who know each other previously or are in a relationship with somebody else. And then there's Justice Lawrence Wargrave. He is the judge, and we learn that he's known for being really, really persuasive and getting juries to convict even if there's not the evidence that there should be. So it seems like he doesn't really care if a person's actually guilty. He just wants a jury to basically agree with him and whatever his prejudices are. And then we added a bit to the setting. The setting, we learned that the island, which is Soldier Island, it is named that because the island, in silhouette, looks like a giant head. It's also really secluded and like really far out from shore. And because it's so far out, if the weather is bad, the house is completely inaccessible from the mainland because they just can't get a boat there. It's described as an exciting and modern house and magnificent and queer. And just a note on the word queer, if you're reading from home, that has nothing to do with sexual orientation, nor does being straight. Both of those phrases just mean that whatever it is that they're describing means odd or bizarre. So if it says, oh, that they're a queer lot, that means, oh, that's a weird group of people. It has nothing to do with queer as the word that we know it today. We also learned that the bedrooms have, or at least 2 of the bedrooms, have a framed copy of the poem 10 Little Soldier Boys hanging up in the room. And that's really all we got out of this chapter. In chapter 3, we're going to read chapters 3 and 4 today. And in chapter 3, we're going to learn why this kind of ragtag group of people have all been gathered on this island, and we'll learn what they all have in common. So, 3 and 4, have at it.